Russia has accused Ukraine of attacking Russian territory for the first time since Moscow's invasion in late February. A Russian governor says 2 helicopters launched an airstrike, hitting an oil depot in a city about 30 kilometres from the Ukrainian border. The resulting blaze injured 2 workers, and some areas of the city were evacuated. The Kremlin says President Vladimir Putin has been briefed on the attack and that it hindered peace talks. Russia and Ukraine resumed online negotiations today, with Moscow saying its position on Crimea and Donbass has not changed. There are hopes that the residents of the besieged Ukrainian city of Mariupol will be evacuated today after being trapped for weeks amid Russia's invasion. Staff from the International Committee of the Red Cross are on their way to the port city after an evacuation plan had been approved by what the aid agency calls top-level authorities. The Red Cross says it is planning to help thousands of civilians escape by leading 54 buses and private cars out of the port city. But it has not received permission to bring in aid. Russia had earlier agreed to reopen a humanitarian corridor from Mariupol. It says it is acting on requests from the German and French leaders to Mr. Putin. Previous evacuation attempts have largely failed.
We are running out of adjectives to describe the horrors that residents in Mariupol have suffered. The situation is horrendous and deteriorating. And it's now a humanitarian imperative that people be allowed to leave and aid supplies be allowed in. The people of Mariupol have suffered weeks of heavy fighting with dwindling water, food, and medical supplies.
Kieran McQuillan joins us live from Lviv. Kieran, Russia is accusing Ukraine of attacking its territory for the first time. Can this be verified, and how significant is this development?
Jill, you just said those words, can this be verified? It cannot be verified by the Associated Press or by most other news organizations. If it is confirmed that it is a Ukrainian attack, it would be very audacious in the first place and very significant, because it would be the first time that Ukraine would have carried out an airstrike in Russian territory since the invasion of this country 37 days ago. Security camera footage has emerged of a Mi-24 helicopter firing a couple of volleys into this fuel depot in the city of Belgorod. It's time-stamped 05:43 this morning. Already light, actually, just first light here in this area of Ukraine and around that area as well. So those helicopters then would have had to fly around, just looking at a map, around 60 or 70 kilometers back out across Russia to territory controlled by the Ukrainian forces. As you mentioned in your introduction there, it's about 30-something kilometers from the Ukrainian border to the area of Belgorod. But Ukrainian territory that's controlled by Ukraine is 70 kilometers away. So this would make it a very, very audacious attack. And so we're thinking, could this be a false flag attack? What is a false flag attack? Well, it's where one country will, in a wartime situation, attack itself and then accuse the other country of the attack for provocating purposes and therefore provoking a response on the enemy because of enemy fire. Now, why would this be a false flag attack? Russian media were very quick to report it, number one. Secondly, the Associated Press spoke to Dmitry Kuleba. He's the foreign minister of Ukraine today. He's in Warsaw, and he said, I can neither confirm nor reject the claim that Ukraine was involved in this simply because I do not possess all the military information. Make of that what you will.
And then there's the attempt again to evacuate Mariupol via safe passage. What are the chances of it being successful this time?
Well, I'm afraid it's not looking very hopeful for that 45-bus convoy, which was dispatched by the office of Deputy Prime Minister, Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk yesterday. A small Red Cross convoy did leave Zaporizhzhia today to try and make it into Mariupol. They were denied the possibility to take trucks. It's just a very small two-vehicle convoy that was given the permission by Russian forces to make it as far as Mariupol. They had aid and other vital medical supplies on those trucks that were denied the entry into that area. The main thing is that they are there, the Red Cross, the International Committee of the Red Cross, are there to facilitate the safe passage of however many people that they could get onto these 45 buses. We heard yesterday that some of those buses had been detained at Russian checkpoints near the city of Berdansk, which is in Russian-held territory. So the very best that we could hope for today is that at least the Red Cross could make it to Berdansk and some of those buses could be released and bring some of those people who...
Kieran,
and some of those people could then make it back to the city of Zaporizhzhia and on to safety.
Kieran McQuillan in Lviv. Once more, thank you.
And Ollie Barrett joins us live from Riga, Latvia. Ollie, we just heard from Kieran in Lviv there saying there is no clear verification on any Ukrainian strike on that Russian oil depot. But even so, Russia is saying that strike creates an awkward backdrop for peace talks. Of course, peace talks, another round starting online today.
That's right, Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, saying that it's not a comfortable backdrop for the talks which are resuming between the Russians and the Ukrainians online. As you say, they follow that round of talks that we saw in Turkey in person earlier in the week. Now, after those discussions, Russia said it would be pulling back forces from Kiev and Chernihiv areas. Attacks in both those areas did continue, though. The Ukrainians certainly believe that while Russia was saying it wanted to give space for peace talks to continue and make progress, that actually it was more of a repositioning of forces and a refocusing of forces on the east and parts of the south of the country too. One of the key elements that came out of those talks earlier in the week was that idea of Ukraine saying that it would accept a form of neutrality if it were able to get security guarantees from parts of the international community. So we will wait to see whether any further detail is forthcoming on that in this round of discussions between Russia and Ukraine. We've also heard from the Kremlin that Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish leader, will be talking to Vladimir Putin today. That is notable because, of course, Turkey hosted those talks earlier in the week. It sees itself as a mediator, a possible mediator in all of this, and has offered to host further rounds of discussions in the future as well, and perhaps even at one point, if we get there, discussions in person between Ukraine's leader Zelensky and Russia's President Vladimir Putin. So interesting to see how all of this unfolds in the coming hours and whether we come out of this latest round of discussions with both sides again pointing to little bits of progress.
Ollie, you mentioned the partial Russian withdrawal in Kiev, but of course we've had warnings both from the Ukrainian president and from NATO as well. This is just regrouping so that Moscow can double down on attacks in eastern, southern and southeastern Ukraine.
Yes, Volodymyr Zelensky absolutely believes that we are seeing and are going to continue to see in the coming days more intense fighting in the east of Ukraine, around the Donbass region. And that is something that the Ukrainians certainly believe, as I say, is going to intensify. But the Ukrainians are also claiming that they have been making progress in various parts of the country in pushing back Russian forces in the areas around Kiev, around Chernihiv, in parts of the south of the country as well. The UK's latest intelligence update from the Ministry of Defence says that it does believe that Ukrainian troops have been making limited but definite progress in places pushing back Russian troops. There are even reports of some civilians now moving back into Ukraine, or at least wanting to do so. We've been hearing from Ukrainian officials in Kiev, for example, saying that it's not quite time to be doing that just yet. But there is certainly evidence of some Ukrainian progress now on the ground.
And thanks to Ollie Barrett laying out what's happening on the ground, the military ground in Ukraine.